What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with the overall markets. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. And deposit $5,000, and you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. The offer ends at the end of July. Anyways, let's talk about what's happening with the market. So I just wanted to say that as far as SPY is going, there's a very, very interesting trend right here. What you'll notice is that for the last couple of days, SPY does a thing where we basically gap up, we push, come down a little bit after this consolidation, then we go a little bit higher, we gap up again, come down to fill the gap, or we pull back a little bit, then we push higher again. Are we going to come down just a little bit, consolidate, then eventually try to push higher again? That's what the trend has been like so far, making higher highs and higher lows. And what's very interesting is that yesterday SPY struggled a little bit to hold above 608, but instead today we're trying to hold above it again. So it's now going for another attempt to go higher. The first thing worth mentioning is that we just got our GDP estimates, and they're not as good as previously expected. So, for the third estimate of the first quarter GDP, we're looking at a drop of 0.5% quarter over quarter versus the prior estimate of a drop of 0.2%. So, that's according to the US Commerce Department. For now, the GDP numbers do look a little bit weaker in terms of the growth quarter over quarter, but some metrics are not as bad. Like if you look at, for example, our GDP price index. This is technically, very close to expectations. Other things are still quite close, but this is a little bit more weak than expected. Despite that, the market's still pushing and still very resilient. It's still holding up very, very well with the bullish euphoria that exists. And besides that, we got our jobless claims numbers. Everything was very close to expectations. Looking at continuing jobless claims and such. So not really anything too crazy so far. We do have a couple of bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. later on. Besides that, when it comes to the S&P 500, so far the market's holding up. Also, what's helping the market push would be chip stocks. We saw Nvidia and many others pushing as a result of some good earnings that came out and some good increases in price targets and revenue expectations, which are going up. So that's a very, very good piece of news for Nvidia. That's why Nvidia is up so far. But I do want to give you guys a warning about that. And finally, Nike has its earnings after close today, so be ready for that. So what do I see for the markets? We're still technically bullish. Now we're trying to break out higher, but here's the thing. Can we sustain these levels? So if SPY fails at 608, there is going to be a risk of us retesting yesterday's low if 608 fails us. So keep that level in mind. We want to see if 608 can hold. If we break 610, we're looking bullish. We're going to be going for all-time highs on SPY, which is going to be closer to, I believe, like 613. So we're going to be looking for all-time highs if we hold above 610. As of right now, we are bullish in terms of the trend, but there might be a little bit of a shuffle here. There may be some consolidation between the 610 and 608 area like this. I wouldn't be surprised if we do this. And then we'll see if we even come down to fill this gap. But as long as we hold that, we could continue to push higher later on. There might be a consolidation move before we start climbing all the way up towards the 610s. So keep that in mind. Now, in case we do lose our main support all the way down to 608 to fill this gap, for the time being, we're going to consolidate and try to push higher. So that's what I do think to be a very, very likely possibility. But for now, the trend is bullish, but there might be a little bit of consolidation here. 610 and 608 are very, very tough areas. So we may consolidate in this range for some time, just like we did yesterday, before potentially breaking out higher again. So keep that in mind. For the QQQ, it has a very similar trend as SPY, right? We're making new all-time highs, but notice that what happened was we basically pushed one day, came down a bit, we pushed higher, dipped a little bit, then we pushed higher again. So are we going to dip and consolidate before potentially pushing higher? We'll be watching that very closely. If the QQQ loses 542.5, we could be retesting 540. If we break and hold above 544, we're looking for an attempt for 545 plus. I wouldn't be surprised if we dip to 542.5 and bounce and kind of consolidate like this before potentially attempting to go higher for 545 maybe tomorrow. So be prepared for a little bit of consolidation here, small pullback, then consolidation from 542.5 or so. And then we could be looking for a bounce after that. On the IWM, we also have kind of like an inverse head and shoulders. Now, this is looking very interesting. We did dip quite a bit yesterday, but now we're seeing buyers who are trying to defend. but that's going to depend on some factors. So we're looking to see if we could hold this 212 area. If that holds on the IWM, this is going to try to bounce and push even higher from here. Now, if we're bearish, if you can't hold 212, there's going to be a risk of us turning back down to even lower levels. So I just want to give you guys a warning about that, to be very careful with these levels. But nonetheless, we're doing a good job at holding up. So basically, here are the arrows. If you look at the IWM, if we can't hold this 212 area, we're looking for a 211 or below. If we hold 212, we could try to rebound and eventually push for 215. So watch to see if it holds. As of right now, it looks like it might bounce a little bit to at least 214. So keep that in mind. ES is looking bullish, but now we're at the resistance I called out at 61.68. We need to break this to push for 61.80, then 6200. If we fail, though, if we can't hold 61.20, we're looking for a dump back down. Overall, this may kind of consolidate for some time before attempting to continue higher for 61.80 or above. So keep that in mind. NQ NQ is also kind of flat right here. If we end up basically continuing to break out and we're above 22,550, we're looking for a temper 22,600 plus. If we're bearish and we end up losing 22,400, we're going to be turning back down. I wouldn't be surprised if we consolidate like this before attempting to push higher, because the all-time high is like nearby, and I do think we may get closer to that. So on NQ, look for a dip to like 22,500 flats, maybe a little bit below that. And then we could be looking for some consolidation after that. We may consolidate in this range for some time before it attempts to go higher. As of right now, the trend is more bullish. Bitcoin is looking bullish as well in terms of its trend, but it might come down just a little bit and retest 106,000 or so, the 106,000s. Then we're going to see if it bounces to form this inverse head and shoulders. So keep that in mind. Tesla's a little bit weak here compared to SPY and the others. Is making lower highs and lower lows. Lots of negative news about their European sales are coming out, and also negative headlines about the robotaxi, as headlines are suggesting that it's going to be a slow growth, not a fast one. Right? That's their opinions. I'm not saying they're right or wrong about that. I do tend to disagree with it. I think they can scale this a lot faster than many analysts think, but we need to see Tesla get back above 333 to bounce. If 330 to 333 does not hold, we could be tipping all the way down to 320, then eventually 316, and we'll see if it bounces there, but there's downside potential. On Nvidia, I want to see us basically break and hold 156.8 to push higher. If we don't hold this, we might be at risk of tipping back down to 154. So I want to be very, very careful with Nvidia here. We need to hold above 156. If not, we could be tipping to 154, and we'll see if we bounce off that. So keep that in mind. On Appl, we basically have a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder that's forming. We could retest 200. We're going to see if we bounce off that or not. If not, if we don't hold 200, we could be dipping all the way down towards 198. So be very, very careful. On AMD, we're technically on a very, very nice uptrend. Um, we have 148 as resistance. If that breaks, we're looking for 150. If it doesn't break, we could be returning back down around 143. So that is what we should be watching for. AMD may cool off a bit. We need to hold above 148. If we don't, we're going to likely come back down to fill this gap around 143, then possibly bounce after that. So keep that level in mind. For others out there, we have Coinbase right here. Not looking that great. I want to see if this can try to hold above 360. If it doesn't, I expect 346 to be tested, eventually back down towards 340, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. Amazon's kind of flat here. If we lose 211, we're looking for a dump. If we break 214, we're looking for a push. As of right now, we're consolidating, so we'll see if this breaks out for 214. Meta is looking a little bit weaker. We have this tough resistance at 715. If it doesn't hold, we could come down to fill the gap at 708, but then we could bounce again after that. So it's very possible we kind of come down, consolidate, and eventually try to break out higher like this. It's still technically bullish. Google needs to hold above 172.4 to 171. As long as that range holds, this could consolidate and start pushing back up for 175. So there's upside potential. And then Microsoft is making higher highs and higher lows. If we lose 492, we're looking for a jump to lower levels, but as long as that holds, we're favoring 495 and 497.5 for more upside. The VIX is technically on a downtrend. It's still technically bearish. There's no sign of a big bounce in the VIX yet. I'm watching to see if this is developing into a wedge. As of right now, there's no sign of a breakout. So the market still remains bullish, and the VIX is still kind of weak for now. So keep that in mind. We're going to see how well we can sustain these levels. We're near all-time highs on SPY and the QQQ, but for now, we're technically in a very, very nice bullish trend, and there's no sign of us losing support. We could consolidate in the range we're in, but then there could be more upside potential afterwards if this trend continues. So watch your levels just to be safe, and I wish you all the best, at least nonetheless. Thank you for listening, and peace out.